Dear brothers and sisters, arguably the most difficult question of faith is theodicy, is the question of why. Now if you go through the pillars and the arkan of Iman, then you see that the last of the articles of faith is the belief in the qada and qadar of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the belief in the divine decree and the predestination of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But that is the pillar, as Abdullah bin Abbas radiallahu anhu says, that if a person establishes it, then they establish their tawheed, and if a person destroys it, then they destroy their tawheed. It is the most difficult thing to wrap our heads around, the most difficult things for our hearts to accept, the most difficult thing for us to stomach when we see tragedies unfolding before our eyes, the way we see Aleppo, Halab unfolding before our eyes. And quite frankly, without the belief in Allah and without the belief in the Akhirah, the belief in the hereafter, nothing makes sense. Nothing makes sense. Interestingly enough, when you go through the Quran, Allah stresses belief in Allah and belief in the hereafter. You don't see stress as much as you do on those things in belief in al-qada wal-qadr, belief in divine decree, even though that is the pillar in the article that most people will struggle with. And there is a very important reason for that. Because just as without a strong belief in Allah and the hereafter, nothing makes sense, with a strong belief in Allah and the hereafter, everything makes sense. Everything is digestible. Everything is acceptable. Everything is tranquil. Even in the greatest times of chaos and havoc, everything can be resolved with the belief in Allah and with the belief in the hereafter. And that's why Allah stresses it. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, "Man amana billahi wal yawm al-akhir," whoever believes in Allah and the last day, everything comes in between those two. So He sends His angels to His messengers with messages to preach the belief in Allah and the belief in the hereafter. And that resolves the problem of that question. So when we talk about the believers and those that go through difficulty in this life and are unfairly tormented for their belief in Allah or never see the fruits of their faith in this world, then we remember that as Allah tells us in the Quran, إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يُضِيعُ أَجْرَ الْمُحْسِنِينَ. Allah does not let the good deeds of the believers go to waste. Two implications in there. Number one, a God who rewards. Number two, a time after this time in which that reward would be fully realized. Or إِنَّمَا يُوَفَّى الصَّابِرُونَ أَجْرَهُمْ بِغَيْرِ حِسَابٍ. When a person suffers, whether that suffering is something that's due to a disease or an illness, or it's due to oppression or transgression, إِنَّمَا يُوَفَّى الصَّابِرُونَ أَجْرَهُمْ بِغَيْرِ حِسَابٍ. Allah will not let their patience go unrewarded. Allah will reward their patience in ways that cannot be quantified. But then what about on the other side, those that transgress and the oppressors? وَلَا تَحْسَبَنَّ اللَّهَ غَافِلًا عَمَّا يَعْمَلُ الظَّالِمُونَ. Do not think that Allah is unaware of what the oppressors do. إِنَّمَا يُؤَخِّرُهُمْ لِيَوْمٍ. Allah delays them to a day. As the Prophet ﷺ says, إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَيُمْلِي لِلظَّالِمِ حَتَّى إِذَا أَخَذَهُ لَمْ يُفْلِتْهُ. That Allah delays the oppressor until He snatches him and He never lets him go. In all of these ayat, in all of these ahadith are the two very important implications that strengthen that belief in divine decree and that strengthen our belief and allow us to proceed through this life in a way that, yes, we are saddened by events that unfold before us, but in a way that we are also proactive about dealing with what we can deal with. Humanity starts wars, and humanity ignores wars.